Welcome to Verge File.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. I had just finished polishing the hood of my car when she came home with that look. The one that said more than words ever could. Not anger. Not sadness. Something colder. Calculated. She walked past me, dropped her keys on the marble counter like they were too heavy to hold, then inhaled like someone about to testify in court. Her voice was quiet. Too quiet. "We need to talk." I didn't flinch. I'd heard those words before. But this time, something felt final. Like the air shifted. Like the house itself was bracing for impact. She didn't wait for me to respond. Just walked over to the kitchen table, sat down like she was preparing for a chess match she'd already won, folded her hands, and said it. "I think we should take a 30-day break." It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. And I knew, immediately, it wasn't about space. It was about exits. I kept my voice even, still tasting the metallic calm that only comes before a storm. "Are you seeing someone?" She blinked, too fast. "Attell," then shook her head. "No, it's not about that. It's about me. I need clarity. I need to find myself again." I'd heard that phrase before, always from people who'd already found something, or someone else. "You're not asking for time," I said, my voice steady. "You're asking for a trial run at being single." She didn't correct me. She stood up, poured herself a glass of water. Didn't offer me one. That was her way. Tiny omissions with massive meaning. "It's just 30 days, she said. "If we come back after that, we'll know it's for the right reasons." But I saw it. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes. The way her bag was already by the door. The way her mind had left long before her body did. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I didn't give her the drama she needed to justify the decision. She left that night with one suitcase and a look of relief that she didn't bother hiding. And me? I sat in the silence, alone, but not broken. Because in that moment, I wasn't thinking about saving a marriage. I was thinking about the first move of a different kind of game. A colder game. A strategic game. She wanted 30 days? I'd give her 30 days. But not the way she expected. It wasn't the silence that bothered me. It was how easily she slipped into it. The first few days felt like an echo chamber. I moved through the house like a shadow, each room colder than the last. But I didn't crumble. I didn't call. I didn't even open the texts she left unreadable in their vagueness. On day 4, I got a message, not from her, but from someone I hadn't expected. Jason. We'd worked together years ago, but hadn't talked in a while. His message was short. "Is everything good with you two?" I froze. He had no reason to ask that unless something prompted it. I replied with a simple, "Why?" His response came fast. "Just saw her at the Marlowe rooftop with someone. Didn't look like a family dinner." I stared at the screen. Not angry. Not shocked. Just awake. Something inside me turned. Not pain. Not heartbreak. Just a deep, mechanical shift, like a machine rebooting with a new purpose. I didn't confront her. Didn't accuse. Didn't ask. I just listened. Watched. Waited. That's when I remembered a detail, small but telling. A week before she left, she had changed her phone passcode. Said it was because of work stuff. But that wasn't new. What was new was the sudden need for secrecy. I didn't try to break in. I didn't need to. People leave trails when they think no one's looking. That night, I opened her laptop. She'd forgotten to log out of her email. Or maybe she didn't care. One subject line caught my eye. Reservation confirmed, the Marlowe. Dinner for 2. The same date Jason mentioned. I didn't click on it. I didn't need the confirmation. I had it already. In the shift in her tone, in the careful choreography of her departure, in the void where honesty should have been. But I wasn't going to blow up her world with rage. No, I was going to let it collapse from within. She thought she was orchestrating space. What she didn't know was that I had just stepped out of her script entirely. I began keeping notes. Not on her. On me. Every shift in how I moved. How I thought. How I let silence become strategy, not punishment. I didn't vanish. I didn't sulk. I watched. And in watching, I began to see everything clearly for the first time. She thought she had taken control, but she never saw me let go. The truth doesn't always arrive in loud moments. Sometimes, it slips in quietly, disguised as routine. It was a Thursday when I found the final thread. Not because I was searching, but because patterns speak if you're quiet enough to hear them. Her car location showed up in my email. Not unusual. It was tied to our shared insurance app. But the places didn't add up. A gallery opening in Midtown. A late dinner near the marina. None of them were places she ever went alone. And none matched the life she claimed she was living. Still, I said nothing. I didn't ask. Instead, I walked through our house and looked, really looked, at the spaces she used to fill. Her favorite mug was gone. The one with the chipped handle she always insisted was perfectly imperfect. The canvas bag she used for yoga was missing too. But her vitamins were still on the counter. Her charger still plugged in. Like she was coming back. Like she hadn't fully decided. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a clean break. This was a trial run. A test drive of a future without me. Without consequences. She wanted to come back if the new world she chased didn't feel better. And I was supposed to wait like a parked car with the engine still warm. That night, I opened my laptop. No revenge. Just curiosity. I searched her name. A few social posts came up. Harmless ones. Smiles, group shots. But I noticed something else. A tagged photo I hadn't seen. From a mutual friend's birthday. She'd told me she wasn't going. Said she was tired. But there she was. Standing too close to a man I didn't recognize. His hand wasn't touching her, but it didn't need to. His posture said everything. Still, no confrontation. I wasn't collecting evidence to build a case. I was gathering clarity. I printed out one image. Just one. Folded it. Slid it into a drawer next to her old notes. The ones filled with affirmations and self-growth quotes. Then I stood in the mirror and stared, not at myself, but through myself. She didn't lie with words. She lied with ease. And that was the moment something in me clicked. I wasn't the victim of betrayal. I was the witness of my own return. Silence can be louder than confrontation. It carries weight when it's intentional. So I stopped answering. No announcements. No warnings. I disabled my location sharing. I turned off read receipts. I took a week off work, claimed burnout, left my phone at home, and drove out of the city. Not far, but far enough to vanish without drama. A rented cabin in the woods. No internet. Just me, and a journal that didn't judge. I didn't need space. I needed distance. From her, from the noise, from the version of myself that kept making excuses for her behavior. I didn't post, didn't scroll, didn't check if she noticed. Because that was never the point. She had been living like I didn't exist for weeks. All I did was match her energy, minus the spectacle. The first message came after 2 days. A simple, "Hey, are you okay?" I saw it. Didn't open it. 2 more followed. Then one with a missed call. No voicemails. And then came the shift, when concern turned to confusion. "Can we talk?" Still, nothing from me. By day 5, she texted a friend of mine, Mark. Said she hadn't heard from me. Asked if I was mad. Mark didn't reply. I told him everything already. I'd asked for silence, not out of spite, but strategy. You see, I wasn't trying to punish her. I was letting her feel the weight of what it means to talk to no one when the audience you took for granted disappears. This wasn't revenge. This was clarity, delivered quietly, effectively, without spectacle. When I returned home, I moved like a shadow. Same routines, different intent. I cleaned the space. Removed her lingering traces. Her framed quote on the kitchen wall. Gone. Her favorite throw blanket. Folded and boxed. I wasn't being petty. I was reclaiming territory she'd already vacated emotionally. And while I was gone, she had posted something. Just one story. A quote. Sometimes you don't know what you have until it's gone. No image. No caption. Just that. It wasn't for the world. It was a breadcrumb. But I didn't bite. Because disappearing wasn't about being found. It was about becoming unreachable. I didn't just vanish. I was calculating. Watching. Mapping out every inch of the territory she thought I'd never dare touch. She thought disappearing was the climax. She was wrong. It was just the pause before the real movement. You see, when a person shows you what they think you're worth, they think that's the end of the story. But sometimes it's the start of the rewrite. I dug quietly. Not with rage, not with obsession, just precision. I wasn't stalking her. I was studying patterns. Observing digital footprints, subtle habits, social crossovers. Her new interest, he wasn't hard to identify. The one from the rooftop bar, from the tagged photos she didn't think I'd see. I remembered his face, not because he mattered, but because she let him get close. Too close. And I remembered proximity like that. It started with a company name in the background of one of his photos. Just a logo on a coffee cup, blurry but familiar. I cross-referenced it, looked up the board, filtered through mentions in trade articles. He worked in operations for a mid-sized consulting firm. Quiet reputation, but money passed through it like a current. And when money flows, hands get sticky. It wasn't about revenge, it was about patterns. And I was good at patterns. I found a weak point. Not illegal exactly, but unethical enough to be explosive in the right hands. Expense reports that didn't align. Flights billed twice. Hotel stays that overlapped with vacations. I wasn't digging into her life anymore. I was uncovering his. Not to ruin him, but to remind her. You don't build castles on stolen ground and expect the foundation to hold. I gathered the data, screenshots, red flags, everything tied with dates and sources. I packaged it anonymously. Sent it to the right department. Not with a note of anger, but a neutral forward. Potential compliance discrepancy. No name. No threat. Just a mirror, angled perfectly. I watched it unfold from a distance. Within days, whispers started online. His LinkedIn went quiet. Comments disappeared. Her stories suddenly shifted tone. Less rooftop bars, more vague quotes about trust and starting over. I hadn't lifted a hand against him. But the storm hit, and he didn't have an umbrella. Meanwhile, I remained quiet. I didn't brag, didn't smirk, just observed the fallout like a chess player who saw a checkmate 4 moves ago. She didn't connect it to me. She couldn't. Because I'd vanished from her narrative. And now her storyline had a plot hole she couldn't explain. This wasn't vengeance. It was exposure. She had chosen a side while pretending to pause. She played the game with 1 foot outside the board. I simply moved the pieces she left unattended. That's the thing about power. It's not in confrontation. It's in control. And in silence, I was still holding the pen. She started posting again. Soft, ambiguous captions like, "New beginnings," under filtered sunset shots. Photos of coffee cups with no people in the frame, like absence could be styled into depth. But the energy had shifted. The confidence in her smile, the ease in her body, gone. She was performing happiness now, not living it. 2 weeks passed, then she reached out. Not a call. A text. Neutral. "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're well." No punctuation. Like she wanted it to feel offhand. Casual. But I knew the tactic. Testing the temperature of the room she no longer lived in. I didn't respond. A day later. "Thinking about you today." Then, "I miss us." Each message a little heavier than the last, like a rope she was slowly trying to throw over the wall I'd built. But silence has weight too. And mine was deafening. I watched her spiral. Subtly, quietly. Her posts turned nostalgic. A photo from our road trip last year, cropped so only the landscape remained, but I knew where we stood when we took it. She added a quote underneath. "Sometimes you don't realize what matters most until it's gone." I didn't flinch. That week, she sent a voice note. Just under a minute. Soft tone, half a whisper. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us. About everything. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For how I left things. For how I made you feel." She paused like she wanted to cry but couldn't quite summon the tears. "I thought I needed space to find myself," she said. "But the truth is, I lost more than I expected. And maybe I didn't know what I was choosing." I played the message once, then archived it. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. She was trying to reopen a door she had welded shut. The problem wasn't that I didn't care anymore. It was that I remembered exactly how it felt to be discarded like an option. Love doesn't survive conditions like that. Respect doesn't resurrect on command. And I'd spent every day since she left learning what life felt like when I wasn't being drained by someone who only knew how to take. The irony? She left to find freedom and came back chasing the stability she'd abandoned. But I had already moved past the version of me that would have taken her back. This wasn't a second chance. It was a new chapter, and she wasn't written into it. One afternoon, I saw her name light up my screen again. This time, it wasn't just a message, it was a request. "Can we meet?" Just that. No context. No details. As if she could still summon me with half a sentence. As if we were still tethered by the version of me that used to bend whenever she reached. I didn't respond immediately. I let it sit. Hours passed. Then a day. And the more time stretched, the more I realized something vital. She wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She was reaching out because she missed access. When people lose control over you, they start confusing curiosity with longing. And she wasn't trying to reconnect. She was trying to re-establish influence. Still, I agreed to meet. Not for closure. Not for conversation. For observation. We picked a public place. A quiet cafe tucked into the corner of a street we used to walk together. I arrived 5 minutes early. She was already there. Nervous. Hands clasped around her coffee like it was an anchor. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You look good," she said. I nodded. "Thanks." Her gaze scanned me. My posture, my calm, the absence of hesitation. I could see it, the quiet panic in her eyes. The realization that something had shifted and she couldn't name it yet. She started talking about how the space made her think, about how she believed we'd both grown. She used words like reconnect, repair, and rebuild, as if the destruction hadn't been deliberate, as if she hadn't lit the match and watched it burn from a distance. I let her speak, every sentence a rope tossed into water, hoping I'd grab it. Then I spoke. "You were right," I said. "The time apart did bring clarity, but not about us. About me." Her lips parted slightly, unsure whether to interrupt or wait for the blow. "I spent years shrinking so you could feel bigger, making myself smaller to preserve your comfort. I didn't even realize how much of myself I gave away until I stopped." Silence settled, heavy and final. She blinked, once, twice. "I didn't mean to make you feel that way. Intent doesn't erase impact." She knew that, but she was trying, in the only way she knew, through soft words and rewrites of the past. "I know," I replied, "but meaning well doesn't undo what was done." She reached across the table, fingers grazing mine. I didn't pull away, but I didn't meet her halfway either. "I'm not angry," I said. "I just don't belong in the place you left me." And that was the truth. I had evolved beyond the shape she was familiar with. And she could sense it. She could see it. The worst thing for someone like her isn't losing you. It's realizing they no longer recognize who you've become without them. After that cafe meeting, something in her shifted. It wasn't instant regret. It wasn't even clarity. It was fear. The fear that comes when someone realizes the door they left open is no longer theirs to walk through. That the person they once knew isn't waiting inside, but has built a different house altogether. She didn't cry. That wasn't her style. She didn't plead either. She just sat there with a fragile smile and eyes that scanned my face like it was a familiar book rewritten in another language. "I think we owe it to ourselves to try," she said at last. Oh, that word hit wrong. Like love was some debt being tallied, some ledger we were still balancing after all this time. But I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. The more she spoke, the clearer it became. She wasn't asking to rebuild anything. She was asking to return to the comfort of the version of me she once controlled. And that version didn't exist anymore. I nodded once slow, not in agreement, but in understanding. Then I stood, said it was time to go. She watched me as I left, eyes searching, maybe hoping I'd turn back. I didn't. The next few days were quiet. No follow-ups. No attempts to explain further. But I knew her well enough to recognize the silence for what it was, not acceptance, but strategy. Waiting for another angle, another time, another emotional crack in the wall I'd built. Only there weren't any. Because here's the truth. Once you stop bleeding for someone, you stop needing their bandages. I kept moving forward. I deleted her texts, archived our photos. Not out of anger, but because keeping pieces of a past you've outgrown is like leaving rotten fruit in the fridge, hoping it'll sweeten over time. It doesn't. It just stinks up everything else. People around me started to notice the shift too. Coworkers, friends, even strangers. I carried myself differently. My voice steadier. My presence more grounded. Not louder, just complete. Cassie messaged me again. "She's asking mutuals about you," she said. "She wants to know if you've met anyone." I hadn't. Not in the romantic sense. But I had met someone. The version of myself I lost somewhere between keeping the peace and silencing my own needs. That discovery was more important than any date or rebound could offer. And deep down, I knew she was beginning to feel it too. That growing distance. Not just physical, not just emotional, but spiritual. The kind you don't bridge with apologies or old memories. She had taken a risk walking away. What she hadn't calculated was that I might actually like it better this way. It was a Tuesday when the last string snapped. I was walking out of a small bookstore I'd rediscovered, quiet, independent, full of forgotten stories, when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen, but I didn't open the message right away. I walked to a nearby bench, sat under a tree whose leaves had just started to turn gold, and let the breeze settle me. Only then did I read it. I've been thinking about us. Really thinking. If you're open, I'd like to meet again. There was no punctuation at the end, just a cliffhanger, a sentence that wanted me to finish it for her. But I didn't. I sat there, phone resting on my knee, and stared out at the sidewalk. People moved around me, living their lives. A dog barked across the street. A kid on a bike wobbled by, laughing. And I realized something crucial. Life had gone on. Not in spite of her absence, but because of it. The silence between us hadn't been a pause. It had been a reset. She didn't want to meet to rebuild anything. She wanted reassurance. She wanted proof that the man she'd left behind was still somewhere out there, waiting like a lighthouse, flickering but steady. But I wasn't a lighthouse anymore. I was the storm she never saw coming. That night, I sat down at my desk, opened my journal, and wrote the last entry I would ever write about her. Not as a closure, but as a declaration. A reminder to myself that growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a steady process of no longer responding to what used to break you. Then I turned off my phone. Not in anger, just in clarity. Because some messages don't need replies, they need distance. And some love stories don't need conclusions, they need endings. The next morning, I woke up with a calm I hadn't felt in years. No checking my phone first thing. No dragging myself through routines laced with resentment. Just breath. Just stillness. I brewed coffee. Read for an hour. Went for a walk. No thoughts of her voice, her face, her absence. Just presence. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I felt whole. I didn't see her again for months. Not in person, at least. But her presence still circled, like fog that doesn't touch you but reminds you it was there. Every few weeks, another message would show up. Hope you're well. This song reminded me of us. I drove by that place we loved. The kind of notes meant to leave emotional fingerprints. Meant to see if the door was still unlocked. But I never opened it. Not once. I didn't block her either. Because silence, when owned with intention, is louder than rejection. I was no longer interested in healing her guilt. No longer willing to be the cushion she fell back on. And it wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. There's a difference between moving on and moving forward. I had done both. She hadn't. Eventually, the messages slowed, then stopped. Not because she found peace, but because she realized there was no crack left in the wall to slip through. She'd lost access, not just to me, but to the life I built after her. And that life? It grew roots. I took that solo trip I'd always pushed aside. A week in the mountains. No signal, no obligations. Just sky and silence. I watched the sun rise over a cold lake and realized I hadn't felt that still in years. I wasn't chasing peace anymore. I had found it, and I wasn't willing to trade it for the memory of someone who only loved me in moments of loneliness. I started a new career project too, one I used to think was too ambitious. Turns out, it wasn't. Turns out, the version of me that doubted it was the version still tied to her idea of what I was allowed to be. Friends said I seemed lighter. My laugh came easier. My eyes didn't scan rooms anymore looking for something missing. Because nothing was missing. I was whole, not because I'd been completed, but because I'd let go. I no longer measured my days by how far I was from the break. I measured them by how present I could be in the life unfolding in front of me. The truth is, some people teach you how to love. Others teach you how to leave. And a rare few teach you how to return to yourself. She did all three, but only one of us stayed. And if you ask me now, did I love her? I did. Did I lose her? No. She lost me. And all it took was 30 seconds. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.